A very good day to you. My name is Kem, and I'm here seated before a professor of governance, institutions, and development studies, Professor Aremu Fatai Ayinde, a man too interesting to ignore, and I figured I must let you guys know the good stuff that we have in Nigeria. A very, very good afternoon to you, Prof.
Good afternoon.
Amazing to be seated here.
Nice to have you
This afternoon. Prof, you are a professor of governance, institutions and development studies, and the elections have ended, right? New lawmakers have been elected, and we will have a national assembly with less women, but that's not my focus today. My focus really is with these new lawmakers in comparison to the democracy that we copy, the US. You have lawmakers that have been there for decades, but here we're going to have new lawmakers again. Is that why, I don't know, but it appears that our legislators are more focused on constituency projects, right, rather than the business of lawmaking? I don't know. From your own point of view, what do you think we need to do to grow our democracy legislation-wise?
Well, thank you very much. That's a very important question, because the question you've asked borders on the rate of legislative turnover in Nigeria. And what that means is that the number of new legislators in each assembly keeps on increasing. And this then puts pressure on institutional memory and how legislators are able to adapt to the challenges before them as quickly as possible. In countries like the US, you see some legislators who have been in the parliament for 30 years, for 20-something years, and they have built expertise, they have built a career in parliamentary practice. It is different here in Nigeria, in which every legislative assembly brings in new sets of legislators. So this has serious implications for the quality of output and legislative performance. There is no doubt about it. But there are processes and procedures and institutions that have been designed and put in place to make sure that new legislators are able to catch up quickly and respond to the needs of the country and their constituents.
Do we have such institutions in Nigeria?
We have some of them within the parliament. We also have some of them that are attached to the parliament. The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies is one institution that was designed to serve as the brain box and to serve as the bridge between
I'm
each
hearing
assembly.
about that for the first time.
Yeah,
there's an institute for that.
There is a National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. It actually started at the beginning of a return of to democracy in 1999 as PAP, Policy Analysis and Research Project, and then it got transformed to the National Institute for Legislative Studies. Then later it became the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies.
Wow. Okay, so what do these people do, to improve the lives of the legislators or to make them more effective in what they do?
I think we can break the question down into two.
Okay.
What they are supposed to be doing and what they do.
Okay.
So because they are not, they are different.
Okay.
What
do they do now? Because I haven't heard about them before.
So what they do right now is to conduct research for the legislators and the legislature. They also do capacity building. They do bill analysis. They do budget analysis. They provide a number of legislative support services to legislators. They do legislative drafting.
What are they supposed to do?
So what they are supposed to be doing, we can put it down to three pillars.
Which will be?
The first pillar will be to conduct research, and then the second pillar will be to conduct a lot of legislative support services.
Okay.
That is in bill analysis, bill drafting, oversight, design and delivery, and so on. So we have, the third pillar will be to say outreach services.
Okay, what does that entail?
Outreach services will mean that you then do some interventions that enables a legislator to understand what the research is saying. Because right now it is assumed that once you do research and you put it at the desk of the consumer, he knows what to do.
Okay.
But that is not usually the case.
Okay.
There are supposed to be some follow-up activities, some follow-up interventions to enable the legislator understand the background to the research how the findings have been framed, and the legislative action that is required of the legislator.
Wouldn't that be too expensive for the country or for the legislator themselves?
So if the institute that is designed to do that is able to harness resources at its disposal, it could do it without putting any extra cost on the legislator or the legislature as an institution.
From where? Where did they get that money from if you say no extra cost?
So there are two ways. First, the budgetary allocation to the institute is substantial enough to be deployed to these areas, but you can also access international grants. There are international donor organizations, and Nigeria is lagging behind in this area because many donor organizations don't find Nigeria as a place where they can really go. So most of the organizations actually base their headquarters in Rwanda, in Kigali, or in Nairobi in Kenya, or in South Africa. They don't usually do much, so they, instead of Nigeria being the hub for donor activities, they attach Nigeria to other countries.
So what you're saying in essence is that you have donor agencies that are willing to donate to helping our democracy grow legislature-wise.
Absolutely.
Or lawmaking-wise.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, maybe it would be a good idea now to get a bit of your own background. I know you're Professor Aremu Fatai Ayinde, and you're a Professor of Governance, Institutions and Development Studies. Maybe you take us through your background a little bit, because I know I'm sitting before a great man, but it's better to hear from the horse's mouth.
Well, I have been privileged to work in different places, and my most recent one was the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, the apex think tank for the country. I was a directing staff, and I trained high-level people in the military, in the security service, in the civil service, and there are in many places. I think 3 or 4 of my participants are permanent secretary in different ministries presently. And then I worked at that same National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. I also worked in donor organizations. I worked in the Bill and Melinda Gates funded project. I worked with DFID funded project in Nairobi. We've done a lot of work. For the past 10 years, I've been working with donor projects.
Okay, you seem to be very passionate about governance, institutions, and development studies. Of course, that's where you have your PhD. Yes. What's the passion about? Because if I would decide to read again, as the patriot that I am, this is probably what I would read. But what stems that passion for you?
The passion is the people, the ordinary person on the street. How can we translate the efforts? And there are efforts. Leaders are making efforts, researchers are making efforts, politicians are making efforts, civil servants are making efforts. But these efforts are not adding up.
Why?
To transform the lives of the people.
Why?
The major reason, I will say, is the fragmentation. There is we are not allowing all these fragments of efforts to add up. And this is where the role of institutes like the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, National Institute for Policies and Strategic Studies. These two institutes are unique because they are direct duty bearers when it comes to generation of evidence that will improve the lives of the people. So this is where those institutes play an important role in bringing all the pieces of these ideas together to transform the lives of the people. That's why I'm very passionate about governance and development studies.
Amazing, amazing. It's great speaking with you, Professor Fatai Aremu Ayinde. I'm sorry, I'm taking your name back and forth, but it's fine. I just want to, just before we go, we have less than a minute to go, but I just want to ask you, in this new dispensation, what are the 1 or 2 key things that the legislators must know? It also appears that the Speaker of the House of Representatives, who has been in the House for quite a while, may not be coming back as the Speaker, but he has all the experience that is required to be the Speaker. But the way we run in our country sometimes, I don't know, what would you say about all of these things we might be experiencing, and what are we looking forward to? Would you hope that the Speaker comes back as the Speaker?
Well, definitely yes, because he is one of the few who have gathered a lot of experience over the years in the legislature. And when he came in as the Speaker, he hit the ground running from day one. He knew what he was supposed to do, and he started with a legislative agenda that remains the most robust so far. Among the legislative agenda he set was the mentoring project, that he was able to nurture young people to understand the parliament. I think it's called leadership, mentoring initiative, legislative mentoring initiative or something like that, where a number of young people have benefited and graduated, which was a very innovative idea. It has never happened before. He also introduced a number of other initiatives, which he was able to do because of the long institutional memory that he has of the parliament. So if we were able to retain such institutional memory, I think the legislature will perform even better.
Many thanks to you, Professor Aremu, Fatai, Ayinde, Professor of Governance, Institutions and Development Studies, also the reviewer of the book of the current First Lady, Madam Aisha, Doctor, I beg your pardon, Aisha Buhari, and a man with many beautiful and interesting parts, of course, one who knows his onions. Professor, I would like you to say something about our democracy right now. Just before we go, as a parting shot, what would you say to the people, to the lawmakers coming in, and of course to the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
So I think I will say two things. Democracy has two main parts. There is the procedural component of democracy, and there is a substantive component of democracy. The procedural component has to do with, okay, we do the elections, we do parliamentary procedures, we have to follow these procedures to do this, to do that. The substantive element is, what does this translate to in terms of quality of livelihood of the people? Now the elections are over, we have a president-elect, we have new sets of leadership coming in the next couple of months. Attention should focus on the substantive component of democracy. That is, what does it mean for the average man on the street in terms of their livelihood, in terms of living standard, in terms of condition of lives. So how do we make sure that the goodwill that the incoming administration have to translate it to the good lives of Nigerians? And that's where the expectation is.
I don't want. How much confidence would you say you have in the coming administration, judging by antecedents?
So I have a huge confidence in that, in the sense that, one, the experience that the team is bringing on board is huge. Second, these are people who are fully aware of what is going on the streets outside, and they have what it takes to respond to the yearnings of the people. They have demonstrated it in the past, and I believe they will do it again. And the third thing is that, going by what we knew about them, and I will touch briefly on the experience of Singapore here. What Singapore did was to concentrate on three things. MPH, they call it MPH. Meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. These are the things that have been demonstrated with the Asiwaju's leadership in Lagos, where meritocracy was given. In assembling his team, he paid attention to the people who could deliver. Pragmatism means it doesn't matter whether it is white or black or blue. He doesn't care about somebody's background, whether it's a Christian, it's a Muslim, it's Yoruba, it's Igbo. As long as you can deliver, it doesn't matter. And that is pragmatism. The third one is honesty in the management of the resources. And everybody who knew Lagos pre-1999 and post-1999 can attest to the huge transformation that Lagos has presented to us. So I will think that, in looking backward, in hindsight, we will say this team is poised to take Nigeria to the next level.
Well, of course, our hopes are renewed in Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. You know me, anytime I have the opportunity to talk about Asiwaju, I will say it boldly and clearly, and of course, like you said, in time past, he has done it before, and that's why he said he's not looking at a government of national unity, because there are diamonds in every tribe in Nigeria. He's looking at a government of national competence, and that's the meritocracy that you did mention. And of course, if we have more people who merit their position, whatever position they get in government, then they will give it their best, and they would receive, and they will be able to deliver to the people what the people essentially want. I will need to go and read a little bit more about the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, and it will be interesting to know more about this particular institute, because I think that we need to take care of these things more, so that when our legislators are coming in, they're coming in, fully equipped with what they need to make a difference in the legislature, and that will give us a more robust democracy as it is. Many thanks to you, Professor Aremu, Fatai, Ayinde, for your time, and we're wishing you all the best in all your future endeavors. You need to, like, every now and then, let us hear the voice of these amazing things you have a PhD in, so that we can have a country that is better for all of us and our children yet unborn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.